This is the chair. Think I'll be able to fix it? Looks fine, right? Well, I've been leaning back on this chair for quite some time, and sometimes I lean back so far, I actually lift it up on the two back wheels and get 3 wheels off the ground. Well, it didn't like that, and a bunch of the hardware pulled out of the wood that's in the bottom of this thing. So I'm gonna take a good look at it and see if there's a way that this can be fixed. So let's go. You're watching On the Mark with Mark. Here's what we've got going. There was some kind of a threaded insert put into some kind of a fiber board here. So my idea is if I can replace this piece of wood with some good plywood and maybe add, maybe a big fender washer on the back side of this threaded insert so I can spread the load out, that might work. So to start with, we got to take this thing apart. Interesting. This got a little bit bent, but not very much really. It kind of surprised me. You can sort of see it in the light, but I'll pound that straight if we can get the rest of the chair fixed. But otherwise, I might just keep an eye out for a good top of the chair. Want a chair somewhere that's got bad legs on it or wheels or something. Anyway, we'll get to tearing the actual chair apart. This chair really doesn't owe me anything. You can see it's worn right there, and there's a couple of worn spots on the back. So, this isn't some priceless chair that has to be meticulously cared for. And if what I do doesn't work, I'm not out anything. This chair doesn't owe me anything, but I am going to give it a shot here. I do like this chair, so if I can save it, I'm gonna do it. Well, that's a bit of a surprise. This actually is plywood, and you can see this was installed this way, so this was the side that was facing the top, because you can see how at the bottom we've got that area there where it was mushroomed out. Here's how I'm going to go about attacking this. Now, I was expecting this to be some lousy fiberboard, but it's actually plywood, so that kind of surprised me. I could try to bend some thin layers of plywood here and recreate this base here, but that's a lot of work, and I'd have to do a lot of upholstering around here, and that's really not my thing. So here's my idea. I'm going to mount this piece of wood on here, and you can see how it rocks. But I'm going to scribe a line, and I'm going to hog out the bottom side of this piece of plywood here. So I'm going to start off by scribing a line and match this arc here, just like that. I've colored in with a Sharpie the area that I'm going to be hogging out on this piece of plywood. So you can see it's getting kind of thin up in this area, which is pretty close to where the new T-nuts are going to be in on the back side. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of this aluminum. I'm going to cut a strip like that, and that's going to be on this bottom side, and it's going to have some holes in it. And then the T-nuts are going to go in, and they're going to go through this. So this is going to act like a real big washer. If there had been something like this on the other side of these two T-nuts there that could have spread this load out over all of this plywood, these would not have pulled out. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of bending here, and of course I've got some cutting to do, and I'm also going to have to hog out an area so that this aluminum stays flush in the bottom side here when it goes underneath of there. And then I'm going to use some Gorilla Glue, this stuff right here, and this is the gap filling formula. So what you do with this is you apply the glue to one side and you moisten the other side, and when you put the two together, this glue kind of foams up. In fact, it says that it expands 3 times. So it can bridge any gaps that I might have in here, because I'm going to be able to hog this out fairly evenly, but the bottom side of this also isn't all that even. So there's going to be some irregularities in there. So I think that will take care of that. And then I'm going to also, I'll probably screw this every inch all the way around, at least around the front areas where it peeled off. And I'm going to have to pay particular attention to the lengths of my screws, because I don't want the screws coming through to the side I sit. I've cut an angle on what will be the bottom side of this seat, so that when I put the cloth over it again, there won't be that hard edge there. It'll be able to smooth over it a little bit easier. But now what I need to do is hog out this area underneath it here. And I'm doing that with kind of a funky cut here. You see I got this back-to-back clamp clamped onto my table saw at an angle. And I'm going to raise the blade up into my part here and I'm going to run the wood through the saw blade at an angle, but I'm only going to bring it up about 1/4 of an inch each time that I run through. Now I've got the fence here so that it's still behind the saw blade. I'm not ahead of the saw blade, so the saw blade is trying to push the piece of wood into the fence. So that's kind of a safety issue there. can see, I have hogged out most of the material that needs to be removed on the table saw. Now I'm going to go after it with my random orbit sander and some 60 grit sandpaper, and we'll smooth all that out. I think that'll do. I've got kind of a neat setup with my random orbit sander. You see I got this hose going up here, and then it gets wrapped around a few times up there, but then it goes to this booster right here for my dust collector. And then the dust actually shoots out here and goes into the duct that goes all the way over here and through my cyclone and then through the fan and to the filter bags. So I call it my super sucker. If you're interested in how I made that, leave a comment and I could do a video on how I went about building that. Here's the rest of the plan. Now, I actually got a pretty good fit here on this side, but the front has a little more curve in it, so it's a little bit tippy there. Also, there is these strings coming through that hold, I guess they hold something down here. I don't know that they're really doing their job anymore. No, there. Oops, I just pulled one out. It's supposed to be down like that. Maybe I'll redo that. Anyway, I just pulled it out of its staple there. These two are still stapled on. Anyway, that doesn't really matter right now. But what I need to do next is I'm going to make like a big washer out of this piece of aluminum here. This is the side right here that pulled out. So what I want to do is my new T-nuts, which look like this, are going to go in on this back side. But first, there's going to be this piece of aluminum laid in here. I'm going to drill the hole through the aluminum and through the piece of wood. And then this is going to be on here. So this nut will have all of this surface area here to spread out the load for when I'm leaning back too far and trying to ruin it again. So we'll be able to hang on to this piece of wood really good. And then hopefully the Gorilla Glue plus some screws all around the perimeter of this, we'll be able to hold this piece of wood onto the seat base. So that's basically what's going to happen. I'm also going to add another layer of wood on the top of this, probably a piece of 1/4 inch, just to get some of that thickness back that we lost from hogging out that back side there. So now what I need to do, I need to cut another channel in here that's big enough for this piece of aluminum so that it lays more or less flush in the bottom of this piece of plywood here. So I think first I'll cut off a piece of this aluminum and we'll get it drilled out, and then we'll know just how big of an indentation we need to make in this part here. I'm out in my garage now. I don't know if you can see that thermometer. It's about 22 degrees out here, which I don't call fun. But I've got my bandsaw here. This has got a metal cutting blade in it, and I've scribed a line on here, so I just need to make one cut, and then we can get back into the relative warmth of the basement shop. I did a little bit of upholstering here. I pulled these strings tighter and glued them, so now the bottom of the seat has got a little more shape to it. I don't really know if that's good or bad. And then I've also marked the holes in our new piece of plywood here. That's gonna go on there, and I need to drill these out, so here we go. Okay, a little tear out on the back side. Of course, that's going to be glued to the bottom of the chair, so it'll never be seen. In fact, those holes are going to get sandwiched between another piece of plywood too. So these holes, at least the back ones, are going to get these T-nuts. They go in like that, so there'll be an actual machine screw. Well, I guess there was before. Anyway, we got to make the, here's my piece of metal plate that's going to go across here. So now we're going to route out this area here so that this can sit nice and flush. Okay, I got this straight edge clamped onto my board, and I've got a straight cutter in the router here. I just need to set the depth, and then I can make one pass on this. Oh man, I have no means of dust collection on my router here, so boy, I just kicked up a bunch of dust here, so kind of sucks to be in the shop at this moment. I'm gonna glue this part in first. And what I've done here is I've drilled two small holes in this aluminum plate that those two barbs are gonna fit in right there. And I'm gonna ram those home once they're in place there with a hammer. And then I'm gonna use the Gorilla Glue, which says it can glue metal and wood. Let's see if it can glue metal to wood. So I'm going to put it on here pretty liberally, and then I'm going to get this all wet. It says it needs water to activate. And I'm going to put this down and put these threaded inserts in, hammer them home, and then I'm going to clamp it to the bench. All right, we'll wait for tomorrow. Look at that! Man, that is really hard. Hopefully these aren't, oh no, oh, come on. Didn't do my clamps any good. I've never used this stuff before. Boy, that really foamed up. Uh-oh. Oh, it actually went through. Oh, I should have ran some bolts through there. Ew. I may have to run a tap through there and clean that up. What in the heck? How do we... Oh, it's like foam. Wow. Well, that is sure gonna work good for filling the gap when I glue it onto the seat. I'm gonna drill a little bit of a counter bore over these torn out holes here for these T-nuts to clear in so that it can sit a little lower on here and get a little bit closer to the wood here. We want to have as close a fit between here and here as we can, even though that glue is said to foam up. So I'm going to drill around these a little bit. I think I might try doing a little carving. God, it's so close to the metal now. Nope, I'm going to leave that alone. All right. Well, that kind of just made a mess of it, but that's as good as it's going to get. I'm going to put the glue on this side. I'm going to wet down this side. Then I'm going to start these bolts through here so they get a good alignment on those two holes. And then I'm going to clamp that side, and then I'm going to start running screws, and then I'm going to clamp it as much as I can. So that's the plan. Okay, I think I got enough glue on. Okay, let's see what happens. This is the most important edge right here. The front edge. That's where we need to have the most contact and the best glue. That's why I put so many screws in here. All right, we'll give that another day and we'll see how this foams up. I think I got this clamped a lot better than I did have the aluminum bar that's in there clamped down. So, but boy, that thing is captured in there now. So we'll have a look at it in the morning. Another day. Here's how it looks. I flipped it right side up like this. I don't know why. Looks like the glue did its job. This is the most important side here. Kind of hard to see. It looks like it probably could have squished out a little more. Well, I wish I'd have stuck a bolt down in those holes. I'm gonna have to get the taps out and find them threads in there. I've cleaned up all the excess glue that squished out around the edges. Mainly I just broke it off. This is going to be covered by some cloth, so I'm not too worried about it. The other thing I did is I removed all of the screws that I put in here because I could feel them from the top side, so I didn't really want to be sitting on a bunch of sharp screws. But I needed those to be long so that I got as much bite out of this layer of the original seat, out of that plywood, as possible to hold this on here while that glue was setting up. So I've replaced them with some shorter screws that only go into this plywood a little bit, but a little bit is better than nothing in case that glue decides it's going to let go. I wanted to have as much bite into that as possible. And I've pushed hard on the top side and I can't feel these screws through, so I shouldn't be sitting on any points. Now the other thing, I should have ran some bolts through the T-nuts for here and here like I did on this side. These actually aren't going into T-nuts, these are going into the original threaded inserts that are in the plywood. I'm reusing those. The ones on the back were just fine. It's just these front ones that got tore out. So I've got a tap here, and this is another one of the T-nuts, and so that's the right size for this. So I need to dig that out, and then I'm going to get in there with this and get those threads cleaned up so that we can get a bolt down in there. And then, well, before we put the bolt in here, I'm going to put another layer of plywood on here. I think probably 1/4 inch, but I'll look around and see what I've got here, just to add a little more beef to this because of that area that I hogged out where I made this plywood a little bit thinner. Okay, those are cleaned out. Got my 1/4 inch piece of plywood cut, and I rounded over the edge here just to make that cloth have a little smoother transition. And this board is warped a little bit in both directions, so it's high in the middle, which is kind of going to work out nice for me. That'll add to the strength of it when it's trying to get bent this way. So I'm going to use the bolt holes as part of the clamps, and then I'm going to run some screws down the middle of it to hold it on. So I just need to get this guy totally coated with glue and screwed and bolted on here. Okay, that will do. Now we just need to let that set up. Then we are in the home stretch here. Another day. Let's get the clamps off of this. All right, glue is plenty set up around there. So we've got the Gorilla Glue gluing this plywood to the base, original plywood of the seat, and then we're just using regular Elmer's wood glue, gluing this piece a 1/4 inch onto the 3/4 inch that got carved out so much. And I was able to put the bolts in that are going to hold the base onto this seat, and that helped hold or clamp this piece of 3/4 inch onto plywood. So let's take that apart. Got this fabric here, and I'm going to staple it over the bottom of this so none of my repair is going to be visible. Okay, it's a little furry around the edges here, but I did fold over the front edge. And anyway, boy, once I cover up my work, it looks pretty good. So that's the top. Ew. Well, it's gotten awfully dusty down here in the shop. It's time to put it together. Hard to believe it's back together. A lot of sawdust on it. Let's take it back up to my office and we'll clean it off and do a test sit. All right, it's back. A little bit of wear here, you know. This is kind of starting to look like Fraser's dad's chair, but this is the chair I've liked. I've had this in here since I started working from home. So let's do, this is the first sit on it, and I don't feel any of the hardware coming through. Okay, let's do the test. Now here we go. This is how I broke it. Yikes. Okay, a little further forward. There we go. There we go. Looks like it's holding. All right. So this chair is back in service now. While I was working on this, I looked on the Facebook Marketplace for office chairs in case this thing totally failed, and I found one exactly like this one right here. See, here's the ad for it. $30. So this chair isn't real valuable. Boy, I probably put probably continuous 4 hours of work into this chair. Consider my time to be worth about 50 bucks an hour. $200 worth into it. Really not worth it. But you know what? This didn't go into the landfill or something. And I don't know, it's not recycled, but the life has been extended on it. And again, I keep thinking of Fraser Crane's dad's recliner. That thing looked like hell. So thanks for sticking with me to the end on this video. And I got my chair fixed. And there's Shelly. Yes, you are. And let's see, was that it? Please like and subscribe. Good, good, good. And if you thought my super sucker on my random orbit sander was pretty neat, leave a comment there. I'm thinking about doing a video on how that's made. I've actually made 2 of those. So they're pretty neat. I can show you how that works. Thanks again.